is happening around the world, especially here in the United Kingdom, coming to you live from Ben Television Studio in London. And of course, today we're talking about global events that are happening more so. Over the weekend here in London, there has been a lot of casualties, especially to do with issues of criminality. And of course, around Africa as well, there has been a lot of issues, especially the 1 million march in eastern part of Africa, where a lot of the demonstrators basically come out to talk about things that they're not happy with, especially in Sudan, in Ethiopia, and other places around there. Nevertheless, as well, we have to talk about things happening, trending in Nigeria, but more so major global event, especially here in the United Kingdom, to do with an issue of things that are happening around the world, and more so in Nigeria. When we talk about things happening in Nigeria, then there is no doubt that we're talking about the most populous black nation in the world, more than 190 million people in that country, and more than 15 million living outside the country in the diaspora. Boris Johnson still leading to become the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Great Britain, and Jeremy Hunt still there with him. One of them would surely end up becoming the leader of the Conservative Party and becoming the Prime Minister of Great Britain. Do you think it's going to be Boris Johnson, or do you think Jeremy Hunt would hunt him down all the way to the end and then become the Prime Minister? What are they talking about? Well, Mr. Boris Johnson is talking about investing in the United Kingdom, allowing more money to come into public workers' hands in terms of increasing wages and basically allowing people to decide how much they can possibly earn by working. And Mr. Jeremy Hunt is talking about investing billions into agriculture, manufacturing, and believing that there is an opportunity to train more people to go and become entrepreneurs or become more in line of creating jobs and making Great Britain even greater. Do you surely see one of them being able to? But what about the opposition party, the Labour Party, where you have Mr. Jeremy Corbyn leading and, well, has been a news saying that maybe he doesn't look strong enough to be the Prime Minister. Do you agree that he does not have the capacity or the strength? He's just roughly about 70 years old. Can he surely be the next Prime Minister, just in case if the Conservative Party, the Tory leadership, end up picking one? Can they defeat Jeremy Corbyn if by chance they could not execute the Brexit agenda and the policy to get Great Britain out of EU? Talking of that, well, Mr. Nigel Farage, who believes strongly that he has the capacity and he has a candidate that can create havoc in the political dimension and calculation in the United Kingdom. Mr. Farage, the Brexit leader, seems to believe that wherever there is going to be an election, as long as the Conservative or the Tory party did not field candidate or support the Brexit party, they will definitely win that constituency. They believe they have the people that can defeat the Labour Party, and maybe you likewise agree that Mr. Brexit, meaning Mr. Nigel Farage, has the capacity and has the people that can create such a tension in the political calculation and dimension and policies of the United Kingdom. Well, the way is all down to the politicians, but in order for us to know who may be in office is down to the voters. So talking of that, of course, we cannot shy away from how many people have been killed in London alone. So far this year, we just come to the half of the year. Today being July, we have entered the second half of the year. Roughly almost 70 people have been killed due to knife, especially, and gun crime. What can the leaders in London do? Mayor Sadiq Khan is talking about, well, this is a violent crime that has affected many families, and he believes that indeed in London there's no room for women being attacked or being killed. What about the men? What about the youth? Well, I think it's a statement to do with that particular incident whereby a pregnant woman has been murdered. And her child now, everybody, especially the family, are praying for his survival. Is London now a major city that you believe the issue of crime, especially knife crime, has become a major problem, and the government need to do something, parents need to do something, schools need to do something about it? Is London as dangerous as any other major cities in the world? Well, we would decide, and you would decide on this dialogue if those are the issues that are seriously affecting people in London. But again, as we say, Nigeria, the most populous black nation in the world, the #1 economy or thereabout on the African continent. Election has taken place. Governors have been installed. They have been inaugurated. Their cabinet has been formed in many of the states across the country. Surely enough, people are now waiting for President Muhammadu Buhari to put together his own cabinet. And maybe this week we'll come across to know who are the nominees from across the 36 states of the Federation that will end up being in the cabinet of President Muhammadu Buhari in his second term. In the first term of his administration, 2015 to 2019, all the ministers survived till the end of the term. Could there be a possibility of some of the ministers coming back to play another role in his second term as the president? Do you agree that that should be an offer for some of the ministers? Do they all perform reasonably well for them to surely be included in this cabinet? Or do you think some of the ministers do not perform well enough for them to be recalled? But again, you have to take into consideration that some of the ministers are the highest ranking officers of that political party called the APC in their state. And when names are to be submitted, their name automatically will be the first on the list from that state, meaning the likelihood that they will come back as ministers for his second term. All of them will claim that they play a major role on President Muhammadu Buhari's re-election, either rightly or wrongly. The choice, of course, of his cabinet belongs to only the president and his inner caucus. Nevertheless, the Nigerian people over the last days have been talking about the issues of herdsmen. Well, poultry, cattle rearing, ranching, livestock places of rearing animals, butcheries, hospital, and other things, clinic, animal husbandry, anything you want to call it, but the name that they actually gave it, they gave it the title and the simple word, Ruga. Well, Ruga has a meaning in Hausa, as we will find out. And of course, one of the major constitutional created region in Nigeria, Midwest, they have been talking about the issue of Ruga or national development. They're restructuring, but they are there and absolutely believe, according to their own understanding, they're the only region that was created by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Midwest. With us today, we'll be speaking to Dr. Don Pedro Obaseki, who has been a frontline leader of one of the Midwest organization, an NGO, and in his capacity as a former politician, former governor, somebody who's been in government, around government, knows what it takes, an entrepreneur, without any doubt, a top broadcaster in the country. And it will be our pleasure to interact and have a discussion with him, not just on Ruga, but on national issues and the way forward for Nigeria. If I have Dr. Don Pedro Obaseki with us, we will be interacting and having this conversation with him. So we're going to go on a short break, and then when we come back, we will definitely link and look forward to you having a dialogue with us as well here in the studio, coming to you live from London. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Well, welcome back. We're still talking about national issues, global issues, to do with our world here and to do with Africa and Nigeria. It's a pleasure to have Dr. Don Obaseki with us, live from Nigeria, a man who has been talking about the situation in the Doctor, it's a pleasure to have you live with us. You're welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alicia. Beautiful intro you just did. Impressive.
Thank you. You really look the part as somebody from the Midwest.
I talk the part and I try to look the part.
Very good. Well, we now have the second term administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. How will you compare his first term and now the second term mandate, even though he's yet to form his cabinet?
I think in terms of forming his cabinet, it is almost like deja vu. We remember clearly that he did not form his first cabinet until August 2015, effectively being in office from May the 29th of 2015. So if he is able to get to release the list of those who are in his cabinet before August, it means that we have progressed at least a little. But for a government that has been in power for 4 years, he doesn't have the same excuses he had in 2015, where the major excuse was he was looking at quality, trying to put together a team. So I think there is a systemic key part of the ruling APC in terms of having an aggregate idea of what it is to unite. But I think maybe pressures are high, and that I can't shoot him for a second term, but the second term has actually not been done. Because right now, what we have in Nigeria is a sole administrator.
Right.
It's a smaller place like a sole administrator. 2.5 months into being sworn in as 2 months into being sworn in as president.
Will you assume that maybe he's still trying to find the right people that he needs to put in the cabinet, in the sense that maybe there's allegiance of the previous people in the cabinet, or rather, could you say you have up to 30% from the previous ministerial members of his cabinet coming back? Will you like to see up to 30, 50, or 70%?
If we allow ourselves to say up to 30%, it means that we are going to have a whole lot of very old persons, analog persons coming back, all the Ogbe's and co. If you see 30%, you are going to think about the likes of Chris, who has been an embarrassment to the ruling party. If you say 30%, you may also be talking about a few, like Fashola, who, in spite of the enormous task of being saddled 3 ministries, which I think was an overkill. But you see someone who seems to have a grasp of what it is to deliver, run a ministry of such nature. Outside of that, I don't think all those in the last cabinet do not deserve to return, because that cabinet has to take collective responsibility for the parlor state of the nation today. Just I can give you an example. I was on Ben TV in February and March 2015. I went to the Nigerian election during Buhari. What my expense was, and I knew I was able to buy dollar at 1.194 pounds at 56. But now it's 458. The nation's economy has nosedived by more than 125%. And but so I don't see any of them. I don't think any of them have a moral to want, irrespective of whatever contributions they might have made to the re-election campaign of Mr. President prior to the February 23rd, 2019. None of them have moral. They don't have any rectitude morally to want to return, because we need him to break. If this president, if the challenge of his election falls through and he remains president, we need a new break, the turning of a new leaf, so that this president can show that he can deliver whatever it is that, whatever mandate, real or perceived. I think that is key. I don't think the cabinet should return. Not one of them. Seriously.
Well, talking of the likes of Fashola, though, it seems like, again, we will try to steady the stream that is coming to us live from Nigeria in terms of the audio system. So just in case we couldn't pick you very well, we may end up reactivating your line back to us. But in case you can still be able to pick me very well, you know, when you talk about, for example, Fashola being the former governor of Lagos State, and now we have another former governor that will be coming out from Lagos State. Do you see the two of them being able to be in the next coming cabinet, especially because the cabinet still has not been formed? But there's a story that most likely they may submit names of the potential nominees this week to the Nigerian National Assembly.
I will be very frank. I get to know both of them well enough, but and I think I know Fashola much better. I live in Lagos, and I can say without outside of the politics of Lagos, I'm an intelligent man. He is a Fashola in another mode. And Tunde Fashola, in spite of the heavy beating he had gotten in the press, I understand in my own area of Lagos, I live in Magodo, and they will tell you at least that the light situation in Magodo has improved exponentially. But at the same time, I run a country home in Benin, and I can also tell you that the BEDC, the Electricity Distribution Company, had not given.
Right. So I think we will definitely reboot the system for him that is coming live to us here from Nigeria in Benin City. So we're going to reactivate that and see what happened. But coming back straight to London now, where we have said and confirmed that at least almost 70 people have been killed so far this year due to violent issues of crime, knife crime in London, in the city. The Mayor of London has been calling on government collaboration between his office and the government to see what they can do to curtail these rampant incidents that have taken more than 60 lives so far in London. And this weekend alone in London, we noticed, followed, at least 4 people being killed due to some issue. And of course, the mayor, again, has called on parents, on institutions, and other organizations to call and see what needs to be done in order for them to curtail these incidents. Is there a reduction in the numbers, or is the number basically increasing? What can the community and people around the country, more so in London, what can they do to help their young ones? And of course, this weekend, it's not just the teenagers that have been recorded being killed. There's somebody who is in his 50s being killed. What do we need to do on our own, likewise, to contribute to solving the problem facing people in London and around the country? Is this issue only within the ethnic community, or is there something that is beyond just the ethnic community in the United Kingdom? And likewise, what can we do to help government or the institution to remedy and create a solution to this rampant issue that is facing everybody in the country? Together, we can surely collaborate. Together, we can definitely create a situation whereby it will be much more joyful, much more peaceful for the people that live in London and outside London. Our communities, be it African, be it Caribbean, need to come together and do something about it. Is it the issue of training the trainer or mentoring the youth who are looking for something to do? Or what can we really do to solve this issue? And of course, is a joint effort between each and everyone in the community. And as we said, presently in the United Kingdom, we have an acting prime minister because she's on her way out. But again, a global event took place over the weekend where the United States President Donald Trump was seen having a conversation, a handshake with the North Korean president. Could there be an avalanche of something new among the power brokers in the world, whereby we have now seen for the first time a serving United States president crossing over and going to demilitarized zone of North Korea and having a handshake, having a conversation, having a dialogue with the president? Could we start rejoicing better? Has there really been any threat apart from the worldly threat that somebody is going to shoot, somebody is going to send rockets to some places? And for the first time at least, we have seen that dialogue, that collaboration of United States President going over there to have a chat with him. Should African rejoice as well? It just basically means that you have to extend your hand of friendship to people. And that's what maybe President Donald Trump did by going to North Korea after his meeting in that part of the world. African leaders, African president, do we extend our hands of friendship to perceived enemies of the nation? Or what should we do? And of course, talking of that, we would look at how we can examine things happening in Nigeria and some other African countries to see what we can do together. Back to Nigeria, I hope I now have Dr. Pedro Obaseki continue your conversation on Fashola and Ambode. Can they work in the same cabinet?
I think they can. They worked before in the same cabinet when Fashola was in spite of the political undertones and the things that went down. Fashola, when he was governor in his first term, Akinwumi Ambode was the accountant general of Lagos State. So actually the one keeping the pulse. And I understand there's something that people understand about dynamics of Lagos and to a larger extent, large parts of the nation. There is the propensity to take the well-being of the larger Yoruba nation into consideration and then relegate to a lesser pedestal the personal clashes. I watched in 2017 the declaration of the people in Ibadan. At that declaration, a week or a few days to that, Fayose and daggers dropped, and you will hear the camp and the FFK, box shots at one another. But when it came to the issue of determining the future of the Yoruba race, they actually sat in the same kingdom, side by side. So I think that it doesn't matter what their personal interests and personal bickerings are. And Tunde, I know I've talked to him, I was executive consultant. So the man is very capital independent, and he is not drawn in considerations. I've not spoken to his government though, but he's not drawn. So on his side, I think equal of them are listed. I think he's most unlikely. I say he's most unlikely.
Well, we're still having a network connection. When you're having a live feed coming all the way from Nigeria, sometimes you tend to come across this technical hitches, and it could be raining somewhere, and then the streaming can be frozen in a particular part. So we basically continue trying to connect and bring him back again, because the real issue as well that we are talking about with the Nigerian people is the issue of the herdsmen, the Ruga ranching that they're putting together, that they said the president of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, has passed the bill and requesting state to create Rugas in their location so that Fulani herdsmen or headsmen basically will have a wonderful place that have been created for them to rear, produce, manufacture, and provide all the necessary, more or less like a new city or new villages or new community places where they can be there and raise their livestock, rather than the way we have been witnessing across the country. And of course, a lot of people are crying, saying no, they do not agree with this new policy idea, and that the president is passing because it's not right. They do not believe that the president needs to create just a segment across the country for a particular group or ethnic community or ethnic people in the country. That indeed Nigeria belongs to all the Nigerians, and if they want to create Ruga, they should create them in state that actually allow or permit or want these Rugas to be created. And again, another agitation or another point of view is, some are saying it's only in some particular 12 states of the country that have agreed to put together this ranching method or called Ruga in their state. But again, the southeastern, the south side, the southwest, a lot of people, especially government-oriented organizations, are coming out to say, no, they do not want anything to do with Ruga, and that Ruga belongs to people because they see it as a business, and the business belonging to somebody out there who the Fulani headsmen are only known as professionals in that industry, which means rearing cattle and whatever you may call it. So to their own point is, well, this is what they're doing, but we don't want them in our place. So once again, let me actually go straight now to see if we can hear more on the Ruga issue with Dr. Obaseki, who is a leader of the Midwestern region, which is constitutionally created in the Nigerian constitution. Dr. Pedro, let me go straight to this issue on Ruga with you now that I have you. What do you think about Ruga?
I am happy you just pronounced it properly. Thank God you speak Hausa. And I know you are one of the most proficient speakers of the language in this country, across the world. Ruga. You say Ruga, Ruga, Ruga. And I keep laughing. Ruga, what is Ruga? Karuga, Kuruga, Mekuna run. Ruga is Hausa for run, take off, take to your heels. And the fact that, you see, there is a place in Niger State which they call Ruga Fulani. So, and having Ruga settlement across Nigeria is a no-no. It has not happened anywhere in the world except in the pre-18th century America, where the American Indians were Rugalized by being pushed into reserves and their lands forcibly taken from them to create the present United States of America. After that, I don't have a problem personally with Nigerians living anywhere. I live in Lagos. I do business in Lagos. I play politics in Benin. I am comfortable. I started my life in Kaduna at the end. So I'm comfortable. But we must see the systemic difference here. Nigerians live in any place. Forget the two big things. Number one, cattle rearing is a private individual endeavor. The Nigerian government now is now aggregating to itself a business. Number two, they are collecting, they want to take land, whether they are doing it by fiat or otherwise, across Nigeria in swaths, and relocating just one ethnic tribe, one ethnic nationality, and putting them in different parts of Nigeria in spite of the originating of indigenous persons in these areas. So I don't need to be Matthews. I don't need to read Economics Made Easy to know that is a definite re-engineering of the nation's population.
Let me ask you, Doctor, because before you go too far on this, what about if the Ruga settlement is actually in support of citizens in that state? So which means you're not in Edo, for example, and you want to go into cattle rearing, livestock raising. So now you should apply to run that Ruga in Edo State rather than somebody coming in to apply for that Ruga settlement. What about that?
On the 30th of January 2018, when the cattle colony started, the grazing colony started, I wrote an open letter to the Edo State Governor, His Excellency Godwin Obaseki, on the arithmetics and economics of cattle ranching in Edo State as a joint venture between the Edo and Delta State governments, thereby providing needed employment for our teeming youths. Cattle ranching is a brilliant business. Ranching. But that is not what Ruga settlements are. The originating reason that was given by the immediate past a Minister for Agriculture and Natural Resources, which was reiterated by Mr. Udogbe, which was repeated just last week, Tuesday, by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture in Abuja in Abuja just last Tuesday, was simple. That it is to reduce the propensity of clashes between headers, between Fulani headsmen and the original owners of indigenous lands across the 36 states of this country.
Right.
And that's to 12. You see, when there is a plan that is not properly thought out, the government begins to bandy itself around kids that miss the bus. So that is what they are doing now, because we've come up strictly, unequivocally, in total condemnation and rejection of this very seemingly criminal plan. They are now beginning to try to look for palliatives to tone their narrative. But we have documents, they are also in the public domain, where the ministry had given out hundreds of millions of nairas of contracts. This now is in Zamfara State and in Katsina State, which are predominantly Hausa states. They are direct conflicts in the president's home state. They are direct conflicts between the Hausa and the Fulanese, the headers and the farmers, even up there. So it is a huge problem. But my problem that I have with it, and that is also the stance of the Midwest movement. All 200 and something of us who are in the executive in the executive council of the Midwest movement, we have agreed that we do not need a redesign of our population demography. We've also agreed that cattle ranching is a brilliant business, and it should not be the preserve of any ethnic nationality alone, not at the cost of losing our ancestral lands and heritage. That is out of it. Now, government does not even own land, as stated in Section 202 of the Land Use Act of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It rests in the governments of the state.
Yeah.
Hence, the governments of the state are the ones who give you certificates of occupancy, while the ones for the rural areas rest actually in the local government areas, apart from traditional lands that are owned or rest in the traditional councils. Now, this being clear, it is why has the government tried to now not come out with this kind of 20-something billion just for ranching? It is not ranching, Dr. Okrede, this is not ranching. Ranching, they are now using as a veil. This is an invasion, because first and foremost, you have indigenous communities in the Niger Delta. Communities on whose soft impacts the economy of this nation is. Communities on whose soft impacts the brilliant city and glistering paper of Abuja. But these people live abject and unquantified. Now, the government's blueprint is available. Is to now take to his belly or take to a business stage. People don't have pipe bomb. They don't have more than 1 hour a day electricity. The roads in the south of Nigeria are in a parlous state, particularly in the Niger Delta. And then you are coming to situate in that place a paradise. How will you? Is that not a recipe for disaster? Is that not a recipe for open unbridled aggression against
Dr. Pedro, you mentioned that the former minister, for example, drafted that policy idea of this Ruga.
He read it out to
right. Who consulted on that paper? Was it not sad around their cabinet, where you have all representation of the 36 states from across the country, which means it will not just be a unilateral decision by just one minister, presumably?
I don't think it is the decision of the minister. The minister, the way Nigeria works, that is the beauty of the British parliamentary system, where a minister can decide to oppose Brexit or any version of it
Sure.
by Theresa May. But because that person is not really an appointee of Theresa May. Theresa May cannot go outside of the elected persons who are mandated by their constituents to represent them in the parliament. But unfortunately in Nigeria, every minister is serving as a servant of the president. Is an appointee of the president. He can be hired and fired at will by the president. The president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has no recourse to anybody, howsoever, wheresoever, whensoever, on the conduct and dispense of the services of any service minister. So all the ministers are at his behest and at his goodwill and mercy. So if they sit in the cabinet to decide that, it is just if there are 36 ministers and the hand of the president is like that of a hydra, it's just 36 hydra moving out of one hand. So all the ministers are mouthpieces, legs, eyes, and hands of Mr. President. They will take collective responsibility on his behalf, and it is on his table to box office, and he can fire them to. It would have been a different thing if this thing was an act of parliament. As a bill that is sent to the parliament, to the Nigerian House of Representatives, of debated since their representative of 360 federal constituencies, or to the state, where there's equal representation per state, and they debated this, put the public domain. You cannot come up with something that is this drastic, and you sit it and do that with the sanctuary of your lockdown. We don't even know whether the minister drank paraga or was on Benileu Kudin by the time they did that, or was on Tramadol, because you are wondering what were they thinking. So I told myself I threw this as a bait to find out how Nigerians will react if we will continue in our proverbial, particularly in the southern part, in our proverbial docility. And since you are not bothered about the life implications on the positive. But unfortunately, the government just shut itself down. Some of us have been told that maybe if we continue like this, we are going to our own peril. And I start. If we could talk during the day, we can talk now. Some of us, we encountered that, and the government had better stop it. Let me speak so that we don't get it also. There are lots. Nigerians mistake every Fulani man for a cattle Fulani. That is what lack of teaching of history in Nigeria. There is the cattle Fulani who are the majority. So when I see some people like the Islamization and Fulanization, I laugh. The Fulani is actually a name that is given by Yoruba to the Fulas or the speakers of Fude or the speakers of Fube. The people they originally call it, they said the Pue. So now those people, they are activists. A majority of them are, when I say you, I mean 90% of them are not Muslims. Nigerians know too, our native traditions are so endemic that even the Hausa cringes, particularly when you look at things like marriages, 7 guys, 6. These are things that are extreme to our present day. There are many Fulanis across the length and breadth of Nigeria who have contributed enormously to the upward of this country. And my partner is a Fulani. I wrote my partner but that will not take away the fact the cattle headed is a problem. Let me quote the government. When the Benue, the same federal government of Nigeria said those cars were what? From Niger. So who are you settling? Are you using the funds of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to settle banditry or bandit-prone migrants from across the Sahel? Are they Nigerians? How can you even measure their Nigerianness? That is one. Number two, when the herdsmen crisis started, because ironically, Nigeria is a nation where we've always reared cattle, but the cattle rearers were not carrying AK-47s. They were carrying long sticks. And all of a sudden, since 2014, 2015, there has been a seismic, almost ununderstandable reversal in the attitudinal disposition of these persons. Now we are scared before we just slow down for the cattle bearers to pass. And now we are scared. When you see them, you build up. They are snapping, so they said, and it is not happening only in the south of Nigeria. Worse enough, the governor of Kaduna State is scared to go from Kaduna to Abuja, the nearest city to Kaduna, by road. The Zamfara state governor has said on television, the immediate past Wanyari, that he now routes from Abuja. The senator representing Katsina State say he can't go home. And we are pretending that this is a little problem.
So basically, this is just, it's not just about the cattle rearing. You have now alluded into, for example, the insecurity on it. But how can the federal government, bearing in mind now that they've written quite a lot of views and opinion from the people, talking about they do not want Ruga in their community, but again, that we, as we spoke earlier, saying that what about if they allow the indigents of this particular state, or any state really, to apply and then run the Ruga? And of course, again, people are talking about, well, anyway they establish the Ruga centers, there will be added value across, in the sense that there will be new businesses to be set up by maybe the indigents. What is your real take? Because the federal government really needs to find a bridge between them and the people to create other jobs. And again, other people are even saying, why spend the money when you have IDP centers, people, millions as well across the country, that are totally displaced. They have not been reallocated. They haven't been given any extra support to go back to where they're coming from. Why not establish something where already people are angry, people are not happy with the situation, and they don't really want it? The government and the people must definitely find a way for them to settle.
I think the major problem started with the body language of Mr. President, right from the ab initio, right? And then the cosmetic approaches they've employed, trying to doing people, have made people a lot more resistant to any such action. On a business level, it's a business case. Cattle ranching is a global business. There are more cattle in Botswana than there are human beings, and they are the largest exporters of beef on the African continent. There are herds of cattle in the British Isles. When you drive on the A406 or on the 818, or you are driving towards the Midlands, they're in Yorkshire, they're on the way to Leeds, but they don't in people's farms. This is a very simple issue. There is nothing that says that cattle rearing is in the DNA of a particular tribe. What we are saying is very simple. If any state wishes to go into cattle ranching, let that state go into ranching for its own people. People within the vicinity. Those states produce 200,000 jobs. Why don't we use the ranching as a way of achieving that?
So you agree then ranching can be set up in state, but not the Ruga?
I wrote a paper to the state governor on the 30th of June 2018 on the business of ranching. But a ranch is not a settlement. A ranch is not a settlement to harness and aggregate nomadic herdsmen whose culture, way of life, ethnicity, and originating land ownership are not native to the indigenous areas they are being settled.
So, for example, now, for example,
You just mentioned now the IDP camp.
Yes.
Nigerians who, out of no fault of theirs, fire a force majority of war, Boko Haram, ISIS West Africa, have been thrown away from large areas of Orodu and Taraba and Adamawa and Yobe State. These people are not Fulanis. They are Shua Arab, they are Shokans, they are Kanuris, they are Kanem. So now the government has not thought about how to give those persons who are living in very perilous conditions succor. You are wanting to resettle across the length and breadth of Nigeria. The document even says 6 per state. 6 per state. The document also states that there should be between 31,000 hectares and 51,000 hectares. In Lagos, one hectare is 15 plots. 1 hectare is 15 plots. 10 hectares is 150 plots. 1,000 hectares is 15,000 plots. There are 15,000 houses. Now, 10,000 hectares is 150,000 houses. So you want to collect spaces that can house 450,000 houses and hand over in a community to. Meanwhile, in the east, in Africa, where there is little land, from Umunochi to Ukwa to Isialangwa, the local governments are averaging 27,000 hectares. But the government wants 31,000, which is larger than just a local government area. So if you have 6, you have totally altered the political coalition. You have altered that area.
So, doctor, because of your timing, just before you go, for example, we say Baosa or Baoso, Baoso or Salo, right? Salo in Yoruba, Salo, Baoso, Baodu in Igbo, right? Yeah. What about it then now, since we are now presuming Ruga is to run, Salo is to run, Baoso is to run. Now the federal government said, okay, well, we're going to give you Salo in all the 36 states as well.
Yes.
Will you be able to move from Benin to, for example, Kazana Eve they provide? Since now we're basically saying, let's provide.
Alista, who is running?
Well, that's the question down to you.
Who is Rugari? So if you build a Ruga, who will run?
Well, that's the question. Who is going to run? Is it the animal? Is it the people in the land? Or is it the messenger?
Now it is those coming, invasion is very simple. Those coming will displace those there so that they can settle. So you will guard them away so that they can settle. That is just it. So on the other hand, I think the federal government is dabbling into areas that is not at all in its purview. The government has no business in business. If ranching is a business, because herding is a business.
Yeah.
But are saying it more like it is the way of life, the tradition, the way of life, the religion. Government has no business in all this. We are a secular country for crying out loud, at least on paper. And that's our federal government paper.
Yes.
Our constitution. Now, the second part, the land to which you are creating a policy, you don't own. The federal government constitutionally only owns land it once head, like all those some places in Lagos, some places federal secretariat, and the entire capital territory of Abuja.
Right.
That's what they don't own any land in my state, except the lands that are owned by federal agencies.
Right.
That is the place where you build the army.
Okay. Okay.
So government cannot legislate land. They shouldn't even originate it. I thought what they should have done, let me be very frank. What they should have done is to check the livestock situation in those states if it comes up, which is enough. And then create hedge funds or accessible grants that governments can use, state governments can use, individuals can use to create such ranches or cattle hidden or piggery farming across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Who does it? Why they do it? Where they do it? It's not business of government. If I need a land to do my business, go to the community and purchase. I will negotiate. Now, legislative effort with even negotiating and consulting with the indigenous owners of these lands across Nigeria. What are you looking for? Land is the most sensitive issue on planet Earth. People go to war simply for land. Land is the fixed factor in economics, is the fixed factor in production. So there is no way that this can just be led to lie low or go away. The federal government should do the right thing. The federal government should create ranches if it's so, and can purchase them in places that is land, but it not create a legislative route settlement across the length of Nigeria. I don't know whether other states we are doing, but we of Expand, we of the Midwest movement, we of the Midwestern region of Nigeria, there is no Rugalization of our people. We say, I said it on the programs, we say capital recruitment and put to Ruga. Ruga is ill-advised, it is neo-colonialism, it is a failed aggregation and seizure of swaths of land. The sheer number, the sheer size it proposed is mind-boggling and humongous. It is on Lagos State cannot do Ruga at that rate, because there is no 31,000 hectares anywhere. In the state of Lagos. The only places where there are swaths of land to give away, ironically, is in the northern part of Nigeria.
So we should just allow them to implement it in the northern part. That is one of the solutions. On your last word, Dr. Obaseki, I want to thank you very much for sparing us this time. But on your last word, especially for the diasporan, because you mentioned one line that actually is not constitutional as the demand to create this Ruga settlement. So which means that then the state do not need to do anything unless they approve or provide the land. If they don't provide the land, then there's no Ruga. Yeah. On your last word, your advice to the Nigerian people and the diaspora.
The diaspora are the singularly most important block in the Nigerian Federation. You feed our people back home. And the Nigerian diaspora actually, particularly those from my side, are the biggest employers of persons at the age of 40 in terms of looking after our parents. Please, you are the biggest opinion. When you screamed once upon a time, Jonathan got out. Please again. Read our constitution, and as opinion leaders within your communities, educate them. This is a fight as it is the fight of those. Because at the end of the day, you did not go to Sojourner Court so that the home front dies. You went to Sojourner Court so that you can recontribute and rearrange the chart, and you are doing great stuff. I want to beg, particularly in areas of British Isles, in the United Kingdom and Mainland, we need you to this here. We need you to see the difference between the propaganda and the reality, so that we try to get to the airport the next year, we still be holding.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Don Pedro Obaseki, who is a leader of the Midwestern region in Nigeria, a region that comprises of Edo and Delta and some other speaking major languages in that region. And of course, sharing with us on Ruga, an issue of the next cabinet and the kind of ministers that they hope that the president will bring on board or retain or not to retain in the second term of President Muhammadu Buhari. And of course, as he rightly mentioned, from his own personal views, the Ruga issue is not a constitutional demand on Nigeria, on the Nigerian state, but is a policy idea being presented by the President Muhammadu Buhari administration from his first term and now, according to the stories, being implemented or requested to be implemented across 36 states of the Federation. Surely enough, the Nigerian people would decide if they indeed want to have Ruga or not to in their locality or in their state. We'll go on a short break, and then when we come back, we'll be having an in-studio discussion on economy, policy, and self-development as a nation and Africa with Mr. Charles Yore. So stay with us. We'll be back soon, live in the studio. Thank you.